Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Safa Brew. Today we're going to do a brew. I'm going to get it right this time on the HOPCAT, similar to all the other gluten based systems. I think Brew is one of them, and there's a few. Anyway, today I'm going to be doing Jamil's Evil Twin, which is an IPA from Worcester Hop Shop. It's a customer made recipe. You can find it under the customer made recipe section. The first thing I'm going to do, as you can see here, I have the HOPCAT up on the upper tier. It will end up going down there, but just for the sake of being able to video this, hoping to be able to video it for you properly up here. I've just got 5 litres of water in here at the moment, so it will turn on the element, but then I'll get it down there immediately and put the rest of the water in. So today I'm looking to make a 23 litre batch. So I've got my recipe worked out in Beersmith, exactly how much water to put in. I'm going to try and do a 7 litre sparge at the end as well. Okay, so first step is to program in all the steps that we need. So the first step will be to heat the water up to the temperature for doughing in, which will be 71 degrees. 71 is just ever so slightly lower than what I need, but I find it's better to go a little bit lower, and then while it's recirculating in the mash, it will correct the temperature for you. It's better than going high and then having to drop the temperature, which is quite difficult. So let's get into programming our HOPCAT. First things first, I'm going to switch it on. You got the PCB and you got the pumps. For now the pump will stay off, and I always like to make sure the pump is off here as well, just in case. Okay, so we want to do a auto brew. First setting is going to be 3000 watts. We're going to have the temperature set to 71 degrees. 71 degrees. And the timer is currently 60, so we'll hit timer here and drop that all the way down to 1 minute. Which means basically that step, it's going to just get you up to temperature, hold it for 1 minute, and then go on to the next step. The next step is the mash. Today it's actually asking for a 90-minute mash, but in this system I think we're okay with 75-minute mash. So let's go 75 minutes, 75-minute mash, and then on the power for the mash, I just set it to like 500 watts. If you have it set too high, you can damage your element turning it on and off all the time. 500 watts is probably overkill anyway, and that is at a temperature of, it says in the recipe here, 66 degrees. I always go 1 degree higher on this, because I think 66 down at the bottom, you probably want to be putting the water when you're recirculating through the top at 67 to allow for the heat loss as it makes its way down the malt pipe. Okay, so that is your mash. The next step will be, so you press auto to go to the next step. It's a boil, so we want a 70-minute boil. There we go. The boil I'm going to have at a power of 2700. Okay. First hop drop goes to the maximum. There, and then I press, was it timer? Yeah, hop. So you press timer and it goes to hop 2. So hop 2 is in the recipe, it's a 40-minute hop. So I'm going to adjust this to be a 45-minute hop, and that should correct the missing time on the other hop drop. There we go. And then timer again. Hop number 3 is 10 minutes. Okay, and then Press auto and start. And you heard it click on. It's now ready to roll. So it's currently at 17 degrees, the water in there. The reason why I've only put 5 liters in here is because these handles are not designed to carry this with full weight. So now what I'll do is I'll put it back down into its rightful place, and from there I'll fill it up to... Okay guys, while that's warming up, just a quick one. So this is the malt, this is the inside gubbins for the malt pipe. The malt pipe itself is here. You can see it's just got a hollow bottom. There is a small lip just inside at the bottom here, if you can see that, and that's what holds this filter. So if I show you the filter, you can see how I've got it so that this bulge goes up towards the middle. The reason for that is as the pressure gets applied by the weight of the grain, it will push the outsides out into the malt pipe to strengthen it. If it's the other way around, if it was this way, if you push in the middle, it will bow in on itself and fall through the malt pipe. But when you're recirculating through the grain bed, if you get to a position where your water isn't filtering through the grain bed fast enough, you could end up dry underneath, because there's a 6.5 litre cavity that sits underneath where the element is for the HOPCAT. And that's what this hole in the malt pipe is for. So if it does that, it'll fill up and it'll flow over down the middle of the malt pipe straight down to keep the element wet, or to keep the base of the HOPCAT wet. So it's a one-step mash, and the mash out, rather than adding hot water, is just to heat it up to 75.6. So I'm going to dough in at 71 degrees, which should give me about 67 when you take into account the temperature of the grains, etc. And then after the mash, there'll be a 10-minute mash out, and then a fly sparge with 13.68 litres of water. Cool, so we're all good for now. Okay, we're getting up to temperature. When it gets to about 65 degrees, what I do is I take the top off, put the recirculation arm on, and I just give it a recirc to make sure that there aren't any hot spots in the water. I just keep it recirculating until it hits temperature. Then I turn the pump back off and put the malt pipe in. So just so you know, there's the malt pipe. Make sure that this bit is screwed on nice and tight, and also make sure you've got your little, whatever it is, it might be plastic, it might be metal, but make sure you've got the blocker, the stopper on the top, so you don't want any grain falling down into the bottom of the HOPCAT. So that just goes in here. And then I'd like to just show you quickly the use of this handle. So if you look at the handle, it's got a, I'm not sure if that's in focus, but you can see the recess that it has. So you put it down, base down, push it all the way in, push back to when you hit the recess, and then you see that's on. Okay, so that's how you lift it. Make sure it's caught nicely in the right place. Then you push it down, out, out. Very straightforward. That's aimed at you, big banana. I haven't got any hazmat gear here, so I'm going to have to just make sure I don't drop it and splash hot wort everywhere. Okay guys, I've just turned the pump off, and you can see temperature is very close to 71 degrees. So I'm going to get myself ready, unpack get the grain bag ready. So first things first, I'll do the main grain bag, and we'll take it from there after. Okay, there's the alarm. So that means it's going to hold this for 1 minute and then start the process. So let's get the malt pipe in. So I've got two different, I've got this for once I've completed the doughing in, but this is quite handy just to make sure you don't end up getting dough balls. So I'm going to use this at first, but then to get all the way into the grain basket I'll use that after to stir. You can hear it still beeping, because it's waiting for me to confirm, I believe, that it's okay. Try not to pour any grain down the edge between the malt pipe and the actual the edge of the HOPCAT. So I'm going to acknowledge this now. You just press the auto button to acknowledge, because I don't want it to keep heating the water up to 71 degrees now. Now that I'm doughing in, this is when the water should be dropping in temperature to get down to my proper mash temperature of 66 to 67. Okay, so I'm just going to show you quickly. I've still got some more grain to dough in. It's starting to look a little bit thick along the top, but it's not a problem. We just add this on, turn the pump on, and just give it some flow up top here, and it just helps helps keep it all mixed in and helps keep the sort of grain to water, the grist to water ratio just nice and easy, so that you don't end up with dough balls, because that's one thing you don't want, is to have spots in your grain where you haven't got any water in contact with them. And it can happen pretty easily, or as soon as it forms that layer, the sort of the flour on the outside of that layer forms a protective coat, then it's very hard for water to get in without you manually using one of these to break the dough ball up. But if I show you now the difference, you see here we're looking very smooth. See, it's the water to grist ratio is changed. So I'll slow this down a little bit, because we do want to make sure we've always got water down at the bottom. Let me show you the top plate. So this is the top plate. I do the top plate exactly the other way around, so I put it in this way so that the water never gathers around the edges. The water's always gathered, pooled in the inside of this when it goes down. I don't know if it makes a difference, just a personal preference. So what you would do is, once you're ready, you would screw that little white part off, put this on, and then you would screw on this piece here. And this piece here has some thread on that side, and you can see just at the top the last centimetre has no thread, so that would be the bit at the top. Basically that would be just above the level of the grain bed. It would sit about there, and what that does is, if the mash is too slow, the drainage of the mash, the wort will then go through the middle of the malt pipe to make sure we don't end up dry at the bottom. So far so good. Okay, so I have finished doughing in. It's taken me a good solid 10-15 minutes to do it. It's not something that needs rushing, to be honest. You can take as long as you like to do it, because it doesn't, you're still, the grains are still mashing, they're still in there. Temperatures are looking good, but you're just making sure that the grain bed is as mixed up as it can be. So I've taken off this side here. Now I'm going to take off hopefully you don't fog up, but this just unscrews. I never screw this in tight, because you don't want to have it stuck so that you end up unscrewing the whole malt pipe. That would be a disaster. Okay, and then I'm going to put this piece on. And hopefully I won't drop that in. I'll screw that down as far as I can get it to go, because you can see I've got, oh no, hang on, I'm jumping the gun here. I've got to put the top on first. Okay, she's on, and now we'll put this on. Try and make sure that this is level. shouldn't really make too much difference, but you know, if you can try, you can just try everything, try and make perfection out of everything. Okay, so now I'll put the, see if I can do this one-handed, put this back on, turn her on, and make sure that we've still got, so you can see the colour now of that web that's coming out. I've probably got it flowing too fast, but I'd like to see how high it gets here to make sure it's draining properly. It is filling up a little bit, so a bit might go over the top. What this is going to do now is going to take all the stuff from the bottom and pass it through the grain bed until this here is clear as a bell. I will slow it down a little bit though, because it's a bit aggressive. And so I'll turn the pump off, put the lid on with this in through the lid's hole, and then we're back again in about 70 minutes. Hey guys, okay, so the mash is about 10-15 minutes in after me mashing in, doughing in, and if you look at the colour on that pH strip, if you can see it, it's just over, it's somewhere between 5 and 5.4. So I'm happy with that. Now, I do know that these are a little bit inaccurate, but you know what, the way I see it is if you're in that ballpark, it's not quite 5.4, it's not quite 5, so you know I'm going to get some decent conversion. I reckon, you know, I'm not going to have any problem with my fermentation on this brew. You can pick up these strips, I think they're about $5 and you get 50. And I do the ones 4.6 to 6.2, which is right in the range for, I mean you can't do sour beers with this, because I think you need lower than 4.6 to get the souring pH, but I don't do sour beers, so there we go. You can hear that the device has turned back on. I know it's just turned off again now. It had turned back on because while it was recirculating the temperature dropped a little bit, but it's only on 500 watts. So it's important to make sure that you set your wattage correctly for each step. So like I only ever use the 3000 watts for if I'm ramping up. So I could have had one extra step in there before the boil where I did a ramp up to sort of 98 degrees Celsius for 1 minute, and then set at 3000 watts, and then said okay, now do a boil at 2600 or 2700 watts for 70 minutes or however long the boil is. So there's a reason for having those little steps in there, and that's exactly what it is. You save your element. I don't think the 30 litre HOPCAT has a 3000 watt, I think it's a 2500, but just scale it down the same. So only use the 2500 for ramping up. Yeah. Okay, so one last thing that we need to do is during the mash we check for enzymatic conversions. So I've just taken a little sample. This is it here. See, perhaps I could have been a little bit less sparing with it, but a couple of drops of iodine. There. And then something to mix it around with would be handy. Doing all this shit one-handed. So basically when you mix it around, if it goes light, exactly like it's doing now, that tells you that conversion is complete. If it stayed dark as it was when you first put the drop on, then you would say it's not complete. So basically what that's telling me is that at this point the sugars in there have converted into sugars that are fermentable, which is good, but the reason why I'm going to continue for an extra 38 minutes is because with the recirculation and etc. I will increase the extraction of sugars. So now we know the sugars are in the right state to ferment, but now we want to get as many of them as we can. Quick one, if you're wondering why I didn't put in a step for the mash out, which is to the raising up to 75 degrees or something like that, It's because what I do is once I finish with the mash, I pull the malt pipe out. It starts to, well, it keeps recirculating, and I class it as being finished when I reach 75 degrees. So it's been recirculating all the way up to 75 degrees. Then I take the malt pipe out and sparge. Okay, I'll just show you here the recirculation arm. I've taken the lid off to show you how I angle it slightly to the side, because if you do angle it and face it straight towards the middle of the pot, which you are probably thinking would be the most organized way to do it, because the hole in the lid would be lined up, but what that does then is it pumps this straight into the malt pipe. So either you want to have a little bit of silicone tubing on the end of this, which a lot of people do. I actually have a piece here which I'm just not using. I haven't found a reason for it yet. I mean, the flavour of these beers have been good. There've been no off flavours. So see how clear that's running now, because this is all just sitting here draining lovely through that malt bed. So yep, not long to go. 11 more minutes until it starts to heat up. Okay, at 10 minutes left, I'm going to take out the top filter and give it a nice little stir. Put the top filter back on again, keep recirculating. This should, it's going to put some crap back through, which will have to get filtered out. But the benefit of that is you just get that last bit of efficiency out of the blender. And it's hot, so don't fuck around barehanded trying to do this shit, because everything in there is hot. Okay guys, it's about to, oh there you go. Okay, so what it's saying now, it's finished the mash and now it's going to go boil. It's going to go boil for 75 minutes. But you have to bear in mind it's only at 67.6. So I'll keep circulating. I'll get this raised up till it's 75. Then I'll pull the grain basket out and allow this to continue heating up and getting closer to the boil while I sparge, because it's just quicker. So okay, so it is it's about 75 degrees now. I'm going to stop the pump, pull the malt pipe out and start to sparge. I'll let the wort underneath continue to heat. That's about the height. There is another height on this, but I'll splash through here because I can hear the water trickling in. I'll show you this. I just have the water flowing out and I just go around. You'll see here actually, it's an interesting point. See there's some grain that's been taken out the bottom, dropped back in on top by the pump, which is kind of why you keep doing that recirculation. You end up with a nice clear wort in the boil. So yeah, I'm just going to let that run out. I'm going to keep moving it around, but so that it tries to drain reasonably evenly. It shouldn't take too long to get this step done. All I'm doing here is rinsing the grains. And here is my Kolsch. This one wasn't brewed in the... man, I can see the camera straight through that. This wasn't brewed in this system, it was in my 3-vessel system. So that was my pot from my 3-vessel system here. It was a 56 litre pot, so not much of a downsize. And if I can get the same amount of, I can fill 2 kegs with one batch, then I'm enjoying it. Because I like to do, I've got 1 or 2 beers that I really like, and when I make them, I make a double batch because I know I'll drink it. So I've taken the malt pipe out to the second level. There's 2 different levels of screws. As you take it out, you need to turn it. because there was just about an inch of the malt pipe was actually in the water from the sparge, so it's still draining now. I'll let that drain. It's at 80 degrees C now, it's still rising up for the boil. I'll let that drain now for about another 10 minutes, and then as soon as I have a boil, or if I've still got time before the boil, I'll go and wash it out, because this thing you need to wash out immediately. And I also suggest your fermenter, like, you should have your fermenter clean with star sand in it. You don't want to be running around looking for that shit at the end of your recipes. Okay guys, we've hit the boil, so first hop drop needs to go in now. Lovely. They're really small hop drops, so I'm not going to bother about using a hop filter or anything. I'm just going to leave them in there, let them go. Sorry, I had to do a little bit of running around there. I realised I had a fermenter full of fermented out beer that I had been cold crashing, and I've just kegged it and put it in the keezer. Which is a little honourable mention. Because one of my kegs in there emptied. Now the problem is the keg I just took out is empty as well, which means that's my spare keg, the one that I used to age. There should be something going into it to age. So this one will go in there first, and then tomorrow night I'm brewing again, so I should end up with a backup for when the other one comes out of here, but I'm going to be drinking pretty much 3 beers for a while. It's alright. Okay, so the next hop drop should be beeping any second now. There it is, yeah. Look at that plug, leaf hops. This Columbus smells amazing. I haven't used Columbus in ages, and this smells, I reckon a Columbus Kolsch. With that flavour in a Kolsch. Oh, yeah. Really nice. Ready for next step. Hey guys, so we're coming up for the 10-minute hop drop, so it's going to be the last bit of Challenger, Protoflop tablet, and I'm going to start to, you can see I put this pipe back on here, so I'm going to start to just recirculate through this pump so that everything gets sterilized nicely. Then I've got this fitting, I'm not sure if you can see that, you can get this from Brew. Basically that goes on the end of a silicon pipe, which is from there through my plate chiller, so straight through there into my plate chiller, back into the... Hey guys, so last night turned into a bit of a disaster. The hop leaf got caught up in the filter and blocked the pump. That's the last time I put loose leaf hops in here. I'll use hop bags in future. I'm not a fan of the hop spider, but I just wanted to show you in reality how I would do the cooling and transfer of the work. So this morning I'm just doing a cleaning cycle on the system. It's clean, but I'm running star sand through the whole system. So what I'm going to do, what I have here, I hope I have this set at the right height. I have my plate chiller. I'm just not going to plug the water side in. But for the wort, pump off, close this valve, take out the recirc valve. Now this doesn't come with the HOPCAT, but if you can buy yourself one of them and some nice silicone piping, you have a fitting to just fit directly on there. Then this side comes, so it's coming out of the pump into the wort in on the plate chiller, wort in, wort out. And then it goes from the wort in to wort out. Last one, which is the same fitting, I fit onto the whirlpool pipe, which then allows me to chilling and whirlpool at the same time. So if we turn this on, so we can see here it's coming at the whirlpool arm. Then the last step is to get a clamp of some kind and just clamp this ever so softly so that you're pointing the flow of the water to cause the whirlpool. Obviously you'd have a little bit more volume in there because it's because I'm only cleaning, but that's basically the first part of the step, and then we stop that. Now the second part, what I do is I just, once I've done to temperature, I take this whirlpool arm out and I put it into the fermenter and I just restart the pump again, and that pumps everything out and into the fermenter. What you can do once you've got a nice flow is lift it up nice and high so that the wort causes a splash which helps to oxygenate it. And that's how to use the HOPCAT. That's a lovely system. And I'm sure I'll have some more brews that I'll put up, more brew videos that I'll put up for you guys. So take it easy and I'll catch you on the next one.